The Blue Hotel by Stephen Crane. Part 6. The men prepared to go out of doors. The Easterner was so nervous that he had great difficulty in getting his arms into the sleeves of his new leather coat. As the cowboy drew his fur cap down over his ears, his hands trembled. In fact, Johnny and Old Scully were the only ones who displayed no agitation. These preliminaries were conducted without words. Scully threw open the door. "Well, come on," he said. Instantly, a terrific wind caused the flame of the lamp to struggle at its wick, while a puff of black smoke sprang from the chimney top. The stove was in mid-current of the blast, and its voice swelled to equal the roar of the storm. Some of the scarred and bedabbled cards were caught up from the floor and dashed helplessly against the farther wall. The men lowered their heads and plunged into the tempest as into a sea. No snow was falling, but great whirls and clouds of flakes, swept up from the ground by the frantic winds, were streaming southward with the speed of bullets. The covered land was blue with the sheen of an unearthly satin, and there was no other hue save where, at the low black railway station, which seemed incredibly distant, one light gleamed like a tiny jewel. As the men floundered into a thigh-deep drift, it was known that the Swede was bawling out something. Scully went to him, put a hand on his shoulder, and projected an ear. "What's that you say?" he shouted. "I say," bawled the Swede again, "I won't stand much show against this gang. I know you'll all pitch on me." Scully smote him reproachfully on the arm. "Tut, man!" he yelled. The wind tore the words from Scully's lips and scattered them far alee. "You are all a gang of—" boomed the Swede, but the storm also seized the remainder of this sentence. Immediately turning their backs upon the wind, the men had swung around a corner to the sheltered side of the hotel. It was the function of the little house to preserve here, amid the great devastation of snow, an irregular V-shape of heavily encrusted grass which crackled beneath the feet. One could imagine the great drifts piled against the windward side. When the party reached the comparative peace of this spot, it was found that the Swede was still bellowing. "Oh, I know what kind of thing that is. I know you'll all pitch on me. I can't lick you all." Scully turned upon him panther fashion. "You'll not have to whip all of us. You'll have to whip my son, Johnny. And the man who troubles you during that time will have to deal with me." The arrangements were swiftly made. The two men faced each other, obedient to the harsh commands of Scully, whose face, in the subtly luminous gloom, could be seen set in the austere impersonable lines that are pictured on the countenances of the Roman veterans. The Easterner's teeth were chattering, and he was hopping up and down like a mechanical toy. The cowboy stood rock-like. The contestants had not stripped off any clothing. Each was in his ordinary attire. Their fists were up, and they eyed each other in a calm that had elements of Lionel cruelty in it. During the pause, the Easterner's mind, like a film, took lasting impressions of the three men. The iron-nerved master of the ceremony, the Swede, pale, motionless, terrible, and Johnny, serene yet ferocious, brutish yet heroic. The entire prelude had in it a tragedy greater than the tragedy of action, and this aspect was accentuated by the long, mellow cry of the blizzard, as it sped the tumbling and wailing flakes into the black abyss of the south. "No!" said Scully. The two combatants leaped forward and crashed together like bullocks. There was heard the cushioned sound of blows and of a curse squeezing out from between the tight teeth of one. As for the spectators, the Easterner's pent-up breath exploded from him with a pop of relief, absolute relief from the tension of the preliminaries. The cowboy bounded into the air with a yowl. Scully was immovable as from supreme amazement and fear at the fury of the fight which he himself had permitted and arranged. For a time the encounter in the darkness was such a perplexity of flying arms that it presented no more detail than would a swiftly revolving wheel. Occasionally a face, as if illumined by a flash of light, would shine out, ghastly and marked, with pink spots. A moment later the men might have been known as shadows, if it were not for the involuntary utterance of oaths that came from them in whispers. Suddenly a holocaust of warlike desire caught the cowboy, and he bolted forward with the speed of a bronco. "Go it, Johnny! Go it! Kill him! Kill him!" Scully confronted him. "Get back!" he said, and by his glance the cowboy could tell that this man was Johnny's father. To the Easterner there was a monotony of unchangeable fighting that was an abomination. This confused mingling was eternal to his sense, which was concentrated in a longing for the end, the priceless end. Once the fighters lurched near him, and as he scrambled hastily backward, he heard them breathe like men on the rack. "Kill him, Johnny! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!" The cowboy's face was contorted like one of those agony masks in museums. "Keep still," said Scully, icily. Then there was a sudden loud grunt, incomplete, cut short, and Johnny's body swung away from the Swede and fell with sickening heaviness on the grass. The cowboy was barely in time to prevent the mad Swede from flinging himself upon his prone adversary. "No, you don't," said the cowboy, interposing an arm. "Wait a second." Scully was at his son's side. "Johnny! Johnny, me boy!" His voice had a quality of melancholy tenderness. "Johnny, can you go on with it?" He looked anxiously down into the bloody, pulpy face of his son. There was a moment of silence, and then Johnny answered in his ordinary voice, "Yes, yes." Assisted by his father, he struggled to his feet. "Wait a bit now till you get your wind," said the old man. A few paces away, the cowboy was lecturing the Swede. "No, you don't. Wait a second." The Easterner was plucking at Scully's sleeve. "Oh, this is enough," he pleaded. "This is enough. Let it go as it stands. This is enough." "Bill," said Scully, "get out of the road." The cowboy stepped aside. "No." The combatants were actuated by a new caution as they advanced toward collision. They glared at each other, and then the Swede aimed a lightning bolt that carried with it his entire weight. Johnny was evidently half stupid from weakness, but he miraculously dodged, and his fist sent the overbalanced Swede sprawling. The cowboy, Scully, and the Easterner burst into a cheer that was like a chorus of triumphant soldiery. But before its conclusion, the Swede had scuffled agilely to his feet and come in berserk abandon at his foe. There was another perplexity of flying arms, and Johnny's body again swung away and fell even as a bundle might fall from a roof. The Swede instantly staggered to a little wind-waved tree and leaned upon it, breathing like an engine, while his savage and flame-lit eyes roamed from face to face as the men bent over Johnny. There was a splendor of isolation in his situation at this time, which the Easterner felt once when, lifting his eyes from the man on the ground, he beheld that mysterious and lonely figure waiting. "Are you any good yet, Johnny?" asked Scully in a broken voice. The son gasped and opened his eyes languidly. After a moment he answered, "No, I ain't any good anymore." Then from shame and bodily ill he began to weep, the tears furrowing down through the blood-stains on his face. He was too heavy for me. Scully straightened and addressed the waiting figure. "Stranger," he said evenly, "it's all up with our side." Then his voice changed into that vibrant huskiness which is commonly the tone of the most simple and deadly announcements. "Johnny is whipped." Without replying, the victor moved off on the route to the front door of the hotel. The cowboy was formulating new and unspellable blasphemies. The Easterner was startled to find that they were out in a wind that seemed to come direct from the shadowed Arctic floes. He heard again the wail of the snow as it was flung to its grave in the south. He knew now that all this time the cold had been sinking into him deeper and deeper, and he wondered that he had not perished. He felt indifferent to the condition of the vanquished man. "Johnny, can you walk?" asked Scully. "Did I hurt him?" "Hurt him any?" asked the son. "Can you walk, boy? Can you walk?" Johnny's voice was suddenly strong. There was a robust impatience in it. "I asked you whether I hurt him any." Yes, Johnny," answered the cowboy consolingly. "He's hurt a good deal." They raised him from the ground, and as soon as he was on his feet, he went tottering off, rebuffing all attempts at assistance. When the party rounded the corner, they were fairly blinded by the pelting of the snow. It burned their faces like fire. The cowboy carried Johnny through the drift to the door. As they entered, some cards again rose from the floor and beat against the wall. The Easterner rushed to the stove. He was so profoundly chilled that he almost dared to embrace the glowing iron. The Swede was not in the room. Johnny sank into a chair and, folding his arms on his knees, buried his face in them, Scully warming one foot and then the other at a rim of the stove, muttered to himself with Celtic mournfulness. The cowboy had removed his fur cap, and with a dazed and rueful air he was running one hand through his tousled locks. From overhead they could hear the creaking of the boards as the Swede tramped here and there in his room. The sad quiet was broken by the sudden flinging open of a door that led toward the kitchen. It was instantly followed by an inrush of women. They precipitated themselves upon Johnny amid a chorus of lamentation. Before they carried their prey off to the kitchen, there to be bathed and harangued with the mixture of symphony and abuse which is a feat of their sex, the mother straightened herself and fixed old Scully with an eye of stern reproach. "Shame be upon you, Patrick Scully!" she cried. "Your own son, too! Shame be upon you!" "There now, be quiet now," said the old man weakly. "Shame be upon you, Patrick Scully!" The girls, rallying to this slogan, sniffed disdainfully in the direction of those trembling accomplices, the cowboy and the Easterner. Presently they bore Johnny away and left the three men to dismal reflection.